Hello, everyone. I can barely contain my excitement. Welcome to episode 119 of Classroom Without Walls. On this show, I interview leading social media, digital marketers, entrepreneurs, content creators, business owners. They come here and share with us their best practices and strategies so that we can future-proof our business. And today, everybody, we are in for a treat. I have my dear friend, role model, and I call him the godfather of LinkedIn. And oh my God, the one and only John Espirian. And I have learned so much from John, like just from his free content. And our discussion today will be, hey, oh my God, Stella is already here. Hey, Stella. And we are going to discuss content DNA. I wish I had the physical copy. Hey, show us the copy, John.
I've got some behind me. And I've got some here.
John's notebook, Content DNA. And you are going to walk away from today's live interview with a much better understanding of what is content DNA and what are the essential elements to create stellar content, to make people want to grab your content and to generate more visibility and more prosperity. And just in case you don't know who is this amazing guest of honor, John is a LinkedIn guru or expert, and I call him the godfather. And John is also a technical writing, copywriting expert. And John is the author of Content DNA. And today's discussion will be based on his new book, Content DNA. And let me share my screen real quick. And by the way, we are live on Facebook. We are live on LinkedIn. We are live on Periscope, and let me know in the comment section where you are joining us live from. So I want to share with you guys, and this is John's book. And so let me know in the comment section if you already have a copy. If not, and this is that book. So John, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for staying up late. It is 10 p.m. UK time, so I appreciate you, my friend.
It is a bit of a late night for me, but I'm really delighted to be here. We set this up months ago, didn't we? And I've really been looking forward to this interview more than pretty much anything else, to be honest with you, because we've been in contact for so long now, and you've been part of my book. So it's really important to me to have a chance to have a proper chat with you about this. So thank you for being part of that journey. And I'm really honored to be here.
I'm really honored to have you on the show. By the way, my dear friend, also Peter, based in the UK, thank you for staying up late. He's going to monitor everyone's questions and comments. If I miss any of your questions, feel free to tag Peter. He is better than me. So John, share with us your story. You have this amazing online identity of being relentlessly helpful. So share with us the story behind that identity.
Yeah, so that came about really by chance, to be honest with you. I was at a conference with our mutual friend, Mark Schaefer, and I was on stage with him because I'd been kindly interviewed for his book, Known, and he was asking us a load of questions on stage. And as I was one of his interviewees, he invited me up on there, and we hadn't really practiced the questions. And one of the last questions he asked me was, how are you going to remain relevant in a market full of lots of options? And I didn't really have a good answer prepared. So I just said to him, I said the first thing that came to mind, which is that I was going to create relentlessly helpful content. Wow. And that phrase stuck with me after that conference, and people started mentioning it back to me. And I thought, I've got the kernel of a good idea here. And it's something I started using in my marketing. Because around that same time, I was starting to get more involved on LinkedIn. And when I started saying this thing, I started to hear people echo it back to me like the hook of a song that people will echo back. And I built some other brand identity values around that. And I came up with this idea of having a DNA to your brand, something that is recognizably you. And that is the core that pulls everything together for me. So that chance moment was the final inspiration to start working on this book, and it it pulls together sort of 10 plus years of my experience in speaking with copywriting clients. But it was all based on that moment of chance. And I thought to myself, I got lucky here by discovering something good, but others shouldn't have to rely on that kind of luck. There should be a more strategic way of doing things. So that's what I've tried to put into this book, is a way of thinking about your business and creating content that services that shape that you create in your business, so that people will notice you and remember you and prefer you for business.
Wow, this is amazing. We already have more than 20 people joining us live right now. Thank you so much, everyone. And you already shared so much value. And I want you to explain content DNA. What does that even mean? So
well, it's the first question that I ask a lot of brands that come to me for writing help. You know, they come to me thinking that they're hiring someone to write some words on their website. And I always go back to the beginning and say, look, what is the DNA of your business? What does the business really stand for? And real DNA in real cells is made up of only 4 building blocks, but they're just repeated in so many different ways that you end up getting these weird combinations. You get earthworms and you get people and you get bananas, and they're all made from DNA. So I think every business has its own DNA. It just needs to discover truly what it is. And it can be made up of, I recommend in the book, only 4 or 5 basic brand building blocks that you need to spend some time discovering what is really you and what you want to commit to. And that defines your shape. So your content DNA is the shape of your brand expressed through these 4 or 5 building blocks. And that brand needs to come out in everything you do. So not only in the content that you create, but just in the way you think about your business, the way you run your business, the way you deal with your customers. It's everything. It's the consistency of running your business in a harmonious way, so that everything kind of makes sense and always shows up with that same shape.
Wow, like, oh my God, every sentence you mention, I want to unpack, because there's so much value behind what you just mentioned. So you shared with us, there are 4 building blocks of content DNA.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you can share each of them a little bit with us. So one is teacher, not preacher.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, I've kind of, in another life, I could have ended up actually being a teacher, I think. But I've always been the guy who likes to explain how stuff works. You know, I like to help people understand things. The best feeling in the world for me is someone going, oh, I don't really get this. And then I tell them something and they go, oh, I get it now. I understand. So that it's that teaching element is really, really important to me. But I don't think you should do it by saying, look, this is the right way to do things. This is the only way of doing it. I don't think that kind of approach works. There's so many different ways to succeed in business, on social media, wherever you want to look. So I'm a teacher, but not a preacher. I'm not going to tell you that there's only one way of doing things. I will try and help you on a path towards some kind of business enlightenment, I guess. So that's one of my core building blocks. And then I've got a few others. So I've got the cheeky geek. So I'm not a suit and tie kind of person. You know, I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of person. I am not a stuffy and formal kind of person. So in my industry, which is technical copywriting, it can often be a little bit boring, a bit straight down the line, a bit formal, a bit dry, really. I'm not that guy. So in my content, I need to have some fun. I need to make some jokes. I need to put some cartoons in my posts, for example. That's not what you'd normally get from someone in my line of business. Defining your brand in these ways means that you need to do something that's just a little bit different, a bit recognizable, and so that you can divide some opinion. Because some people hate my approach to technical copywriting. They think that you should be, you know, wearing your checkerboard kind of shirt. You've got to have the 3 pens lined up in your pocket. You've got to have a really, really thick pair of glasses, and you've got to wear your suit and tie and all of that. And that's just not me. So that brand value means that, you know, I've got my cartoon t-shirt and I've got my cartoon in the background. It's just that kind of idea of just being a bit more relaxed and a bit more confident, actually, in what I'm saying. So that's my cheeky geek side. I've got the attitude of gratitude, which is another one of my brand building blocks. That comes out in every piece of content I create. So that's all about supporting others rather than trying to hold on to secrets, and showing, always showing gratitude for the things that other people do to help me succeed. So, for example, I've got something called a Friday Shout, which is a series of posts I've been doing on LinkedIn for almost 2 years now, where every Friday I'll give a shout out, put a spotlight on someone else to tell my network something about them. And then all of that is tied together by the last and most important building block, which is this idea about being relentlessly helpful, which at its core is that helping will always beat selling. So I'm not a hard, pushy kind of salesy guy. I will always look to help first, even if there's not a direct financial benefit from what I'm doing. But I do believe that if you put out enough helpful content and enough helpful practice, then that will come back to you in good ways in the future. So those are my 4 building blocks. And in the book, I talk about ways that you can kind of think about your own business, your own self, so that you can discover what your building blocks are. So I give myself as an example and unpack that. But then I really want you to think about what your 4 or 5 things would be. And there's a few different methods to get there. But once you've got that brand shape, those building blocks, you can run with it. Then I know how I need to run my business. I know how I need to make content. Everything will make sense because everything will have that shape.
Well, I love this so much. And I think, many people when they're on social media, you are one of the most, I see this comment from Stella. It's one of the most, giving and caring and sharing person. And so can you kind of share with us specific ways that you become relentlessly helpful? I know you are always so good at commenting and responding to others, the Friday shout out and attitude of gratitude. So I wonder if you can give us some additional examples to illustrate what does it even mean to become relentlessly helpful, so we can apply the same technique to our own content marketing and content creation and running our business.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it means kind of removing sales from your process as much as possible, and thinking about what would be the most helpful thing for your audience to read right now. So, for example, I've just written a book. Okay, so I've just published a book, but to go along with that, I've written a blog post that goes into step-by-step detail in the self-publishing process, because that's what I went through. So this thing has taken me 2 years to get out into the world. But what would be really helpful for my audience would be for them to understand, what's gone on behind the scenes, how much these things have cost, how long it's all taken, who my service providers have been. Now, the old way of doing things would be to keep all of that secret and say, well, look, I struggled to find out these things, but hey, let's not tell the world about it. But I think that the new internet first way of doing things is to share the things that you would have kept secret, so that people can see your authenticity. They'll see your struggles, they'll see your successes, and they'll kind of understand that your aim is to just try and show the truth and be helpful to them. So it's really important when you're starting out on LinkedIn in particular, I think, is to try and gain some visibility by doing the thing that you mentioned, which is to comment on other people's posts. Because what that does is it gets your name into the minds of the people in your second and third level connections, the people who you're not yet connected with. But if you can turn up and show some authority in what you're saying, your subject matter area, and you're writing something of interest with authority, that will lead to more people viewing your profile and then wanting to connect with you. So a lot of people start LinkedIn by they don't want to post, right? They're too frightened. They don't know what to say. So they just sit there and just watch. They just watch. They're the consumers. And I talk about this in the book. There's 3 kind of users on LinkedIn, or on any social media platform. In fact, there's the consumers, there's the contributors, and there's the creators. So the consumers are, they're learning, but they're really just watching. They're behind the velvet rope. No, they're essentially anonymous people. And then there's the contributors, the people in the in an imagined art gallery who are putting, the paintings on the wall, and they're putting the ropes up and the lights up, and you can see them a little bit, but they're not really the stars of the show. And then finally, there are the people who are actually the painters, the people who do the Da Vinci on the wall kind of thing. And they're the ones who get all the glory. So what I recommend people to do is get to a point where you can be the Da Vinci on the wall. You can be the creator that attracts other people to come to the gallery. But to start with, rather than just watching, because that's an anonymous thing, try and contribute if you can. So try and start by commenting. It's a really powerful thing to do, and it will get your name out there. And if you combine that with searching for your ideal customers and also other colleagues who work in the same industry as you, and trying to make connections with them, then when you do start posting content, when you do start posting comments, you'll get a lot more visibility a lot more quickly. I started on LinkedIn. Actually, technically, I started in 2008, but I didn't really do anything with it properly until I really threw myself in 2017. And before then, I was just kind of watching, wasn't really posting very much. And surprise, surprise, I wasn't getting results. If you want to get results, take sales out of your process, start commenting, and then be brave and start actually creating content as well. But none of that makes sense until you've got your brand identity sorted. If you don't know who you are or what you're trying to be, you're not going to know what to say. So it's really foundational to get these brand building blocks in place, because then everything can be lined up and it all will then make sense.
Oh, I love this. I love the 3C. Also reminds me of my own.
Very similar to yours. We mentioned it in the book, don't we?
Yeah, totally. And so you are dropping so much value. Everyone, if you love this, please make sure to tag people who can benefit from this content. Give this a share and a heart. So I love, in your book, you have so much just like statement that made me like pause, like, so this is one such statement, ads are a cost, but content is an asset. Everyone, we should just pause and think about this statement for a second. So explain that to me. I love this so much. Also kind of resonate with what you have just shared with us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's ads give you instant exposure. You can pay some money today and you can get visibility today. Isn't that brilliant? The old way of doing things would be, let's place some ads. Let's do it online. Maybe we do it offline. Great. We'll get some customers through the door. But when you turn that tap off, all of your exposure finishes, gone, zero. If you create content, that content will serve you forever. So whereas the ads that you place right now will serve potential customers today, if you create content, that could serve potential customers today, but it could also serve potential customers in a year's time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time. You're building an estate. Okay, you're building an empire, if you like, of content, and that is an asset. It will grow over time. So you start with one post, you start with 5 posts, you start with 10 posts, and soon that becomes 50 posts, it becomes 100 posts. The people who discover you through Google or through social media or maybe through email or some other direct exposure can find one piece of content, and they can drill deep and go, right, what else has this guy written? Oh, look, he's answered all of my questions about this topic. That gives a much, much better impression than buy my stuff through ads. So I think you're spending on a cost. It's a cost if you place an ad. It might work, but it is definitely a cost. And once it's done, once that ad's out there, it's not going to keep working for you. You're going to have to keep paying for it to keep it going. And people don't want to be sold to anymore. They're more sensitive to it than ever. But if you create helpful content, that will just sit there and it'll work for you 24/7. Even if you go on holiday for 2 months, that thing is still there and it might still be getting you customers and revenue. So I think you need to think about content as being a long-term asset and ads being a long-term cost.
Yeah, I love it. So are you saying that we should stop doing paid ad? So is that kind of, especially for like solopreneurs and small business owners, like most people joining us live are solopreneurs, freelancers, or like small business owners. So should we stop doing that?
I wouldn't say to stop completely, because I think when a business is just starting, it needs as much momentum as it can get because you've got no visibility at all. Okay. So I think a business just starting could do with investing in some ads. I think a business that is well established can keep its market share by continuing to put ads out. So in other words, if you're really small and you're starting out afresh, it's a good idea. If you're big and established and you want to kind of hold on to your authority, it's a good idea. That's why McDonald's and Coca-Cola advertise, even though they're really, really popular. But if you're in the middle, then it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to be spending your money on adverts when instead you could be putting that money into creating stuff that actually helps people. So rather than thinking of, how much money we're going to spend on ads this month, next month, the other month, you could put all of that budget into creating some content that will continue to serve you in the long run. Yeah. So I don't think ads are going to help most businesses in the long run, but there are some cases where, if you've got a time-sensitive promotion or your business is brand new or you're really well established as a market leader, then it makes sense. But if you're in the middle, which most of us are, I think it's much better to focus on creating something that will actually help the customers you want to influence. So
totally. I mean, like for me, I block most of the ads if I can. Yeah. And if I couldn't, even on Google search, I pretty much, skip the first search result. And the second one, I actually just taught my son, skip those because those are ads are being like, hey, you don't know how true it is. So
this is a key thing, and I think a lot of younger people are noticing this as well, because I've heard it referred that if you go on YouTube and sometimes you get an advert straight away, and all you do when that happens is you just look in the bottom right corner of the screen for the counter to count down until it says skip ad. You don't actually even notice what the ad is because you're just waiting for that thing to click. And we're becoming more like that. We know where the button is to skip the thing. So we're not paying any attention to what's going on. We've got Netflix subscriptions, so we don't even need to watch ads anymore. We've got digital video recorders, so we can zoom at times 30 and get past the ads. So we're becoming a society that is more immune to that kind of advertising. So if you're going to spend a lot of money on it and then people are ignoring it anyway, it's going to become less and less effective. It's much better to create something that people actually want to consume, some kind of interesting content.
Yeah, I love this. And also, like, I follow up on this identity of being relentlessly helpful. And also in the book, you mentioned that you give away so much of your content for free. Yep. And so, like, I wonder what you think about gated content. Okay. Like, many people click funnel this. I think many people still do this. Give me your email and you get this piece of gated content. Yeah. So you don't do that, right?
No, I don't. I think marketing best practice seems to be that if you want to try and gather email addresses so that you can build your email list, you need to give something away. Okay. And so there's an exchange of you give me your email address and I'll give you some half-baked PDF with my top 7 tips on whatever. I don't think that's the right way of doing it. You need your content to be seen by as many people as possible, really, if you want it to influence people. So I would rather say create a really good piece of what would be lead magnet content. Put your contact details on the last page and your offer, if you've got one, and let the quality of the content determine who's actually going to take the next step with you. Wow. So instead of putting up a wall and saying, you can't have this amazing content until you give me your email address. Because what a lot of people do these days is they have a second email address and they use it for the web signups. And then they get the thing they want and then they unsubscribe or they never read those emails anyway. So it doesn't really matter that they receive them. What is the point of saying, hey, I've got 10,000 email subscribers? Yeah, but no one's reading your emails because they're using a second email address or it's a junk address, right? So what it means is that when you've got an email list, your open rates and your reading rates and your click rates are probably going to be really low because there'll be a lot of people who are not really engaged. They only signed up because you forced them to. right? Whereas my email list, even though it's not very big, it's about 1,200 people, so not massive, but my open rates and click rates are like more than twice the industry standard, because I know that people know that I'm not forcing them to sign up. They want to be there, and therefore, I get a lot of engagement through that route. So I think focus on creating something good, and let that be the testament to your quality, and let people contact you off the back of that if they want to. Don't pressure them. If you pressure them and force them down a route that they don't want to go, they're not going to turn into customers. They're not going to turn into advocates. So just I think it doesn't work personally. So take it out of your process.
Yeah, that's why everyone, all of us, we love you so much. You are like the oasis in a desert, seriously. And so I'm kind of curious. So how do you grow your list then? So you just share a piece of content that is so good. So in that piece of content, do you have like a call to action, like join me on my list, or you don't say anything? So people consume this piece of content, they will reach out to you. Hey, John, how can I be on your list?
If I've got my blog posts, then I've always got a call to action at the end that prompts people to go to my list. And if I create, for example, a PDF document post that's on LinkedIn, that will always end with a screen that says, hey, go here to get some more tips. So people, they still get a call to action, but they've already got all the good stuff up front anyway. So if all they came for is the good stuff and they don't want to sign up, that's perfectly fine. But what I do tell my list subscribers is if you do sign up, then you'll get sort of extra behind the scenes stuff, and you'll get some stuff that I don't share elsewhere. So but that's about as pressured as it gets, and it does mean that the list has grown very slowly, but my engagement on the list is so much better than average that it just means that it works well for me to do it like this. And I'm still in touch, like one-to-one with people because of it. So I think it works brilliantly.
I mean, I love it. Like, every time I get an email from you, it's like, yeah, there's my friend there. So true. And I want to actually, that's one of my my questions. Thank you for joining us live. We have more than 30 people live. Everyone,
right.
Thank you so much. And so, especially on LinkedIn, I think this is going crazy. Like sometimes, in the comment section, you will see like paragraphs of tagging. And so what do you think about this? You never tag anyone. So why is that? And should we even tag? So how do we approach this tagging thing?
I think it's one of the most frustrating things is being put into a tag wall. No one wants to be a brick in someone's tag wall. Okay. Sometimes I get tagged in things and it takes me a few minutes to look through and see where's my name in that list. I know I'm there somewhere, but there's so many names. It's just so depressing, isn't it? Because what it means is the other person who's doing that tagging is really just doing it to drive up their own engagement. It's forcing a lot of other people to see the post because they get a notification. And I don't think that's a good way of doing it. If you've got something that's really, really relevant to a couple of people and you tag them, that's fine. But if you're just tagging en masse, either in the body of the post or in the comments, that is a clear sign that you're just doing it really for engagement. And I don't think that's a good way of doing it. So I try not to tag people if I can, unless I know that I've mentioned them in a video or I've worked with them and it's something that's particularly relevant to them. So it's one of the bad social media practices that I'd like to see a lot less of. And people who constantly tag me like that as a way of getting engagement, I tend not to spend time engaging with them. I've got plenty of other people who want to engage with me in a more authentic way, and I'd rather invest my time and energy in them rather than people who are just trying to increase their numbers. So avoid tagging unless it's really essential and really relevant.
Oh, I love that. How about for like recommendations and endorsement? I sometimes I receive a recommendation request all the time. Oftentimes I don't respond. And sometimes people give me like 20 endorsement and they ask me, hey, can I return the favor? I'm like, so what do you think about those strategies?
Yeah, I think that's just bad practice again. I think you should endorse someone only when you know something about them, really. Certainly not on the day that you've just connected with them and someone's just gone and endorsed you for 3 things and then is expecting you to return the favor. That's just bad practice. And it's entirely possible that LinkedIn might be able to track that and say, hey, you've just done a trade here. This isn't cool. We're going to damage your reach in some way as a result of you doing that thing. And recommendations are really, really powerful on LinkedIn. So, you know, because the other person has to give them. You can't write them yourself. So they're valuable. They're powerful. You can't just give those away. There has to be someone you actually know really, really well, or ideally have worked with, and that way they'll carry more power. If you were just giving recommendations to everyone that you met, I think people would soon see through that. So I don't think that's a good way to be either. So be careful with your endorsements, be careful with your recommendations. But if you do like someone's work, or you have worked with them and believe in them, now is the time. COVID-19 time, when you can't get out, but you can sit on LinkedIn and you can just say, look, these 20 people are absolutely amazing, and I know, and I've worked with them, and I'm going to go and write something honest and authentic about those people. Absolutely do that. But don't do it as a way to try and get someone to return a favor to you. That's not a good human way of doing networking.
I love that. You know, I think everyone is like, amen. Yeah, we need more people like you in the social media, digital marketing space. And so here is a question from Jeff. Thank you for joining us live. I understand this question. I understand, right?
I do understand, yeah, because there's there's a chapter in my book about what I call a poison portrait. It's the opposite of my pen portrait. It's the opposite of the client that I really want to work with. And I've characterized this guy that I hate as a salesy douche canoe. So that's what the DC means. And Jeff has very kindly sent me a mug with a douche canoe on it. So it's really important, actually, because everyone talks in marketing about, know who your ideal customer is, and, just make a picture of them and understand who it is that you want to serve. But very few people talk about doing the opposite as well. So you need to think about who you don't want to serve, so that you can be tuned to the kind of people you want to try and avoid. Because although it's really good to kind of serve your ideal customers, it's really important, I think, in business to avoid as many headaches as you can as well, because if you've got a nightmare customer, that can just drain your energy. And even if they pay well, you just feel exhausted at the end of it. So, build an idea of who the person is that you don't want to serve, and look out for those signs when you're dealing with new potential customers. And if it's someone who's going to be a headache for you, that douche canoe, avoid them at all costs.
I think we can all say amen to that. I have like such people in my network for sure, even in person. And so, like in your book, you mentioned showing up like on different places with the same shape. And I found that to be really interesting and really innovative. I wonder if you can explain that to us, because you also talk about consistency. I think we all understand, showing up on a daily basis consistently. But how about showing up with the same shape everywhere? So what
it means is that when you find your brand values, whatever you identify those 4 or 5 things to be, it's almost as though you've got a checklist in front of you whenever you create a piece of content that you look at and say, are my brand values represented in this thing that I've created? So whether you've done a podcast interview, whether you've done a YouTube video, whether you've made a PDF post, whether you're sending an email, whether you're doing a short native video on LinkedIn, whether you're doing an Instagram image post, whatever social media platform you're on, ask yourself, are my brand values coming out in this thing? So a lot of people just think of brand as, oh, it's the colors that you use, or it's your logo, that's your brand. But it's not, is it? It's so much more than that. It's everything about you. It's the unique shape that you're putting out into the world. So get those brand values in front of you and make sure that every time you create a piece of content, that those things are represented. Now, in the book, I do say it takes you a while to come up with these things. Okay, so you're not going to just instantly go, oh, I've got a brand identity now, brilliant, I've done it. So until you get that thing nailed down, I've got a kind of safety net that I mentioned in the book, which is my CHAIR framework. So CHAIR, which is content that is challenging, helpful, amusing, interesting, relevant. Try and get a couple of those things, at least a couple, in every piece of content you do, so that until you've got your brand identity sorted and your unique shape that is just you, create content that is part of Chair. Challenging, helpful, amusing, interesting, relevant. That's the kind of content that gets people talking, gets people remembering, gets people commenting, gets people laughing, gets people sharing. That's the kind of thing you want, because the most important thing on social media is to get engagement. Really, that is the fuel that's going to get your stuff seen. You want to get seen. If you don't get seen, you're irrelevant. You're wasting your time if your content doesn't get seen. So the number one thing to chase on social media, really, if you're going to chase anything, is engagement in your content. Specifically, you want comments on your stuff. So yes, turning up with the same shape everywhere means that people get to know you. They get to invest in you. They know what they're going to expect when they deal with you. But even if you haven't got that nailed down yet, you create Chair style content and people will engage with it. And if you do that for long enough, the consistency thing, then you'll start to build an engaged network. And over time, people will go, yeah, I know John. He's that copywriter on LinkedIn. That's all I need. I need to be top of mind for that thing. People will remember me. And that's the route to success.
Do you mind if I share? I do a screen share of the Chair statement. I think it was so good. Everyone.
Yeah, of course. Go for it. If you've got it, go for it.
I do have it. Hold on. Let me see if I can. I don't know. Let me know if you guys can see this. Can you see this comment?
Yes, there it is. Yeah, I can see it.
Challenging, helpful, amusing, interesting, and relevant. It's just so good. It's so good. So make sure you get those terms correct. And so I want to kind of follow up on this a little bit, John. And does this mean that we shouldn't talk about our personal life or just even not showing our personality if our business have nothing to do with our personal life? Trying to understand this showing up with the same shape. So should we avoid like personal, like children, baby, hobbies, traveling?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, look, these brand values have to be foundational to you. They have to be something that you would always want to talk about. So if it's something from your personal life that is foundational to the way you run your business, the way your ethical view of the world is, what really matters to you and what you would always want people to know about you, then yes, absolutely, it could be relevant. So it might be a really passionate cause that you've got. It might be something about a family aspect. It might be something about a hobby of yours. But if you just always bring that in, just make sure that it's always there. If you're going to bother doing it, you should try and make sure that it's always part of your identity. So I don't think there's any kind of limits for that kind of thing. It's up to each of us to decide. But the most important thing to do is I suppose just be as authentic as you can when talking about it. And I know you involve your family in your journey, and that's one of your brand identities for me. I mean, we haven't done a brand consultation together, but the fact that you travel with your family.
This classroom without war. That's kind of my brand.
Yeah. And it's just this idea of you being a family unit, but traveling around the world together is really strong in my mind when I think about you. And so it would be really weird if you were doing all of that traveling, and obviously your family is so important to you, and then you just don't mention it at all. So you pretend that you're on your laptop in your, you're in a New York office or something, and actually, you're on the beach in Singapore or whatever. It would be weird if you didn't mention it. It has to be part of you. That's the way you run your life. It is your brand. So yeah, I think absolutely you can put those things in there. Just be aware of I suppose, throwing in too many different things, because you don't want to give a confused message. So it has to try and boil it down to a few basic things as much as possible. But yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any limit to the kind of things that could be part of your brand ID.
I love this. And this goes back to what you mentioned earlier, understand our DNA, the core value, make sure there's alignment, and the same shape. So I really love that. And you are such an amazing copywriter, and your content, people just love your content. So I wonder if we can talk about, actually in your book, you have a section talking about LinkedIn, talking about the tagline on LinkedIn. I think that is the part which is very important, right? Given
Yeah.
how short our attention span is.
Yeah.
But that is also the part that so many people struggle with. Like, I'm guilty of this. Let me know in the comment section if you can resonate with me. I don't even know how many times I changed my LinkedIn title. Like, you just feel like, oh, how can I get this right? So
Yeah.
I wonder, you have to make sure your tagline is interesting, informative, and
Yep.
individual. So
Yep.
I wonder if
That's
you
right.
could give us some examples to explain this. And everyone in the live audience, I wonder if you are willing to do a live critique of someone's LinkedIn tagline.
Yeah,
And
I'm happy to, certainly.
so share your link in the comment section, everyone.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not
happy.
very common that we get someone like John on the show.
I'm certainly happy to take a look at that. What I suggest in my book, and I also mentioned this in the How Not to Be a LinkedIn Loser video course that I've done, is that LinkedIn headlines are really, really important, and you've got only 120 characters to play with. And rather than thinking about it in terms of one long thing, I think it's much better to try and chunk it into 3 sections, which is the ones that you've just mentioned. So the 3 I's. So interesting, informative, and individual, or intriguing, if you like.
Mhm.
So the interesting bit is the first 40 characters, and that's also what I call a content DNA statement. So it's your, once you've got your brand identities nailed down, you need to think about what would it be for me to describe what I do, what value I put into the world in just 40 characters. And the reason it's 40 characters is because on LinkedIn Mobile, when you look at comments and you look at posts, usually you see only the first 40 characters of a headline. And so that's the bit where you need to grab someone's attention. So if you start your headline with helping business owners to successfully ... and people are thinking, well, okay, what are they actually doing? It's much better to have something that's just a little bit more direct and try and sum it up in a nutshell. So you can see my headline there starts with relentlessly helpful technical copywriting. So it makes clear what I do, and I've got my little brand identifier at the beginning. And then the middle part of your headline, which is the next 60 characters. So you've done the first 40. The next 60 should be for information. So it's things like SEO keywords, and it's things that add a bit of context to the interesting section. So in my case, I mention B2B websites, I mention LinkedIn Nerd, and I mention author of Content DNA. So they're additional bits of information that add to my opening statement. That leaves me then with 20 characters left to make up the full 120. And in that, I suggest that you put something intriguing, something individual, what I call a bravery badge. And in my case, that's not a douche canoe. Now, a lot of people won't know what that means, but that's fine, because it's something that will just pique people's interest, and it might help to start a conversation. And that gets to the absolute key of what it means to be successful on social media, I think, is to start more public and private conversations. So you start public conversations through your content and through comments, and you start private conversations through connecting with people and direct messaging them. So if you can think of ways to hook people into wanting to talk with you, you're much more likely to get referrals, you're much more likely to be remembered, you're much more likely to get direct business. So that is my formula for headlines: is interesting, informative, and intriguing. You put those 3 things together, that gets you 120 characters, and it produces a headline that says a bit about you in an interesting way, and hopefully gets people more interested in clicking through, reading your profile, and making a connection with you.
I love this. So you know how on your smartphone, and this is probably a hack, and you can add a few more like character space. Like I'm embarrassed to show you mine. Mine was like 5 paragraphs.
Yes, on iOS only. This doesn't work on Android, I think. But on iOS, if you edit your headline, you can get an extra 100 characters. So the people who use that can use it to add some search engine optimization kind of keywords in there. Maybe there's some value in doing that. But what it means is that your headline becomes, instead of being something relatively short and snappy, it ends up looking like a paragraph of text. And that's not that's not something that a lot of people are going to want to read. They might just want to scroll straight past that. So I'd be mindful of not stuffing too much in there. If you can get your core message in the first 120, I try not to go over that too much. Maybe if you need to go an extra 10 or 20 characters just to fit in a sentence, then that's fine. But if you think, I need to fill all of this space because I can, you're probably going to end up waffling a little bit or producing something that's not really razor sharp. You want to get it as short as possible, because this is something that's going to follow you around on every part of LinkedIn. So if you make it too long, you might just turn people off.
I'm going to make change on my tagline for the 1000th time. So people actually send me a few links, and let's do Vicky, and she wants to do a quick critique, and she's pretty amazing idea. What do you think? Give her some tough love, John.
Yeah, I think I actually, she's had Plateau to Grow for a little while, and I like that as an opener, because that is a good content DNA statement. And she talks about being a marketer, lead generator, persona creator. That's all excellent. So the middle part of it actually is good as well. The only thing that I'd like to see different on that in using up the 120 would be something that is more of a bravery badge at the end, something that's more of a conversation starter. So, I mean, I happen to know Vicky is, for example, a really big fan of movies, and she tries to relate movies to marketing lessons, but that doesn't become apparent from her headline. So in that case, if I were to make a suggestion for a change, then I'd put something in about being a movie buff, or the world's biggest, I think, is it Tommy Boy is a favorite film, I think, possibly. That's the kind of thing you want to drop in there, because you might just make a connection with someone over something as seemingly inconsequential as that. But if you can get someone saying, "Oh yeah, I love that film," or "I really like that genre," or "Yeah, let's have a chat," that's great. And people can do it over all sorts of things. I mean, some people just put their favorite pet in there or something like that. It's just something to start a conversation, add a bit of personality. So that's what I would say would be maybe missing from that headline. But otherwise, it's actually pretty good.
I love it too. Her case and mine is like contrast. Her is short and sweet. Mine is like 2 paragraphs there. So Lance also sent a request. So let's make this our last one. And so Lance, my dear friend, join us live in Australia. I think it's 6 or 5 a.m. or I don't know. Thank you so much. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one where possibly the use of individual keywords just makes it read a bit too much like a list. Is not enough of a statement in there. So we've got the Savvy Navigator at the beginning, which is a good opening to the content DNA statement. But I think it would be helpful maybe if that middle bit was just written in more of a way that made it look like a sentence, a statement, and possibly replacing that hashtag that you've got at the end, which is actually a little bit difficult to read. It's another one of the tips I give, is that when you put a hashtag into anything, you should use capitals at the start of each word inside a hashtag, because that makes it easier to scan, and it's better for screen readers as well. So maybe that it would be a chance to remove that hashtag and put that into the about statement, and then replace that with, as I say, a bravery badge that is more of a conversation starter. So a sentence or short statement in the middle of that headline, and then something that will drive a bit of intrigue at the end instead of the hashtag, and put the capitals into the hashtag, and then put that into the about statement.
Yeah, I have a quick follow-up regarding hashtag. You know how on Twitter, when you enter a hashtag, people can kind of, discover you a little bit easier.
Yep.
So how about on LinkedIn, does it matter if I add a hashtag or not?
Well, LinkedIn's own official advice is to use no more than 3 hashtags in a post. And so I recommend for readability purposes that you leave your hashtags for the end, and follow their official advice of putting no more than 3 in a post. And that differs a lot from other platforms. So Instagram is the obvious category where, you might find 20, 25 hashtags in a post. You would never do something like that on LinkedIn. I've seen plenty of people try and put lots in. I don't think it works for visibility. I recommend that you think of your own branded hashtag. This is all part of forming your shape. Okay, so come up with your own words, phrases, your own dictionary, if you like, of terms that start to be noticed and recognized as being you. So, for example, I use LinkedIn Learner Lounge as one of my hashtags. And every time I post a LinkedIn tip, I will always include that hashtag at the end of one of my posts. And it means that people can follow the hashtag and have extra chances of seeing my content as a result of doing that. So a really basic copywriting tip around this, if you want to develop your own hashtag, is to ideally think of pairings of words that rhyme, those work well in hashtags, and also try and use some alliteration. So in other words, consecutive words that start with the same letter. So things like LinkedIn, Learner, Lounge has got a nice flow to it. And I also, with the rhyming thing, another one of my hashtags, when I'm doing an explanation of something, I've got no painer explainer. Okay, so something that rhymes or something that has alliteration in it can be a little bit more catchy than something that's just a long string of words. And then, yeah, people can start following your hashtag. If you can encourage them to do that, that's great, because if someone follows your hashtag as well as following you, they've got like 2 opportunities of seeing your content, because they're telling LinkedIn, yes, not only do I want to follow John, I also want to follow his hashtag. That means really show me his stuff, please. So create your own branded hashtag, get other people to follow it, and you'll be set up for success if you do that. And one other tip about hashtags is try and do some due diligence first. So if you come up with an idea, go and search for that hashtag and see if someone else is already using it, because the worst thing you want to do is trying to use a hashtag as your own if someone else is using it in another community already, because you're going to get some kind of contamination going on if you do it like that. So try and make your own words up and then use them consistently. Every time you post in a certain category, use that hashtag so people know what to expect.
Totally. I love my personal hashtag. I always end my post with my personal hashtag and then enter a space. And so my personal hashtag is separated from other people's hashtag. But I definitely use more than 3. I'm going to reduce on that. And so here's a question that I missed earlier. I think it was asked by Tim. Thank you for joining us live. And he asked, do you find being repetitive is important in your content creation?
I think it's a good idea to repeat some ideas, yes, because on social media, probably only 1 or 2% of your audience at any one time is going to be able to see your content. So it's very easy to worry that, oh no, I don't want to put this out again because everyone's already seen it. But no, it's not true. Not everyone has seen it. Even if you put it out via email, not everyone will have seen it the first time. So it's okay to be able to repeat yourself a little bit, because there's very little chance that someone is seeing so much of your stuff that they go, oh yeah, you've just shared that already, I'm bored of seeing this, so I wouldn't worry about that. What is actually really important to do, if you can, is when you make the creative effort to create one piece of content, that you make it stretch as much as possible. So you need to do repurposing and republishing, and that's covered in another one of the chapters of the book. So let's say video is a brilliant example. So let's say you create a video that you put on YouTube. You also want to turn that, if possible, into a blog post. You want to turn it into a series of quotables that you put on Twitter. You want to turn it into a series of short form posts that might work well on LinkedIn. Maybe some image posts, snapshots from the video that you put somewhere else. It's just important to not have to be in creative mode all the time, because that's really draining and it takes a lot of time. It's much easier to create once and then repurpose so that people can, so let's say we're doing a live video, and if you turn that into a YouTube video, if you turn it into take the audio and put it out as a podcast, you've already done the creative work once. It's just the rest of it is just admin, but it multiplies the message. It's a really good way of saving time and yet multiplying your exposure.
I love it. And speaking of, repurposing content, I love Alter.ai. So what I do is, like, after this is over, I will just download the video and send it to Alter.ai, and I will automatically get the transcript. I just do some copy paste and make it into a blog article, especially when you have amazing guests like John.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a smart way of doing things, really, and also republishing. So if you've made the effort to create something on your blog, then go and republish that thing on LinkedIn. Go and republish it on Medium and any other blogging platforms you can, because a lot of people worry that they're going to be damaged because Google will think, oh no, this is duplicate content. Let's penalize this person, but that's not really true at all. Google's much smarter than it used to be. So if you've created something on your blog, go and republish it on LinkedIn, go and republish it on Medium, and you'll get a new audience, or you'll get extra exposure from doing that, even though it's just a copy and paste, essentially. It's free exposure for you.
Totally. And oh my God, people, like, I think Vicky said that you are still so sharp, so alert, so smart at 11 p.m. That is, you guys imagine when John is like 8 a.m. in the morning. Oh my God, yes. So like, I have been sharing John's LinkedIn. I know we can talk about this forever. So everyone, please make sure to send John a personalized invitation, connection request, and connect with him. And then share with us again. I'm going to share your book. Where can we get a copy of this amazing book?
If you search for it on Amazon, you'll find it in all territories. So Content DNA, or if you search for my surname, you should be able to find it. And there's a very long section in the look inside, so you can read plenty of this book before you actually decide whether or not you want to buy it. But Amazon is the main place.
This is amazing. I read the book. Probably quite a few people in the live audience also read the book. Yeah. It's absolutely worth the investment.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So that's the main way. I've just got my pre-orders out of the door, actually, because a lot of people over the last few months have been supporting me by pre-ordering the book through my website. So I finally managed to get those out. It's been a little bit delayed because the whole virus situation means that things are just taking long for delivery and things like that. But finally, all of those people who've supported me will be getting their books soon. And so the book is available as paperback and ebook through Amazon, and the audio book, which I narrated myself, which is almost 7 hours long, that will be coming out later in May. So I hope for the people who prefer to listen while they exercise or cook or clean or whatever they do, I hope that version is a useful companion to the written content.
Totally. I love this. Is actually every chapter you have to get to the point. I love it, right?
That's my kind of copywriting training coming out there, because people are busy and they need memory hooks, don't they? So if they don't want to dig into a whole chapter, they can just get straight into it and say, right, what's the lesson from this? Or if they have read it already, then they can maybe come back and jog their memory by seeing the get to the point section. So I thought I needed to put that into each of the 32 chapters.
I love it. I see my name there, so I have to stop.
Yeah, you're at the top of my index. That's great.
So this is so incredible, John. I hope you can take some time to relax and before you go to sleep. Otherwise, you'll be dreaming about content DNA. And such an incredible interview. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. Please make sure to connect with John. He is relentlessly helpful and really amazing guy and a great human being. And thank you so much, John, and thank you so much, everyone in the live audience. I appreciate you guys. I hope to see you next Wednesday, same time, same location. Take care. Bye.